Hello guys, my name is Prince and this is Math Center. Subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos. Post your comments and questions on my social media handles and I'll respond to it. We are still on the topic plane geometry. In the previous video, we looked at some examples based on the properties of angles that we saw in the first video, and we solved those examples. I hope you picked a couple more and tried your hands on them. In this video, we are going to look at the angle properties of parallel lines. So let's begin by looking at what parallel lines are. Parallel lines are lines that do not meet. So for example, in the diagram that we have here, we have the line AB and the line XY. Now, to indicate that there are parallel lines, you draw this arrow in them, showing the direction in which they are moving. Now, you can see clearly that if this line continues and this line also continues, there is no way that they are going to meet. So, we see that line AB and line XY are parallel lines. Now, when you have a parallel line like this, and you have another line crossing the parallel lines, you are going to form different types of angles here. Now we are going to consider the properties of these angles in this video. So we say that line A, B, and line XY are parallel lines, and the line crossing the parallel lines is called the transversal or the transversal line. So line AB and line XY are parallel lines, and the line crossing them is called the transversal. So whenever you have two parallel lines or two or more parallel lines and you have a transversal, you are going to form some different types of angles, and we are going to consider the properties of these angles. The first type of angle you are going to form whenever you have this is what we call the alternate angles or the alternating angles. Now, where can we find them? You can see in this diagram that we can have an angle here which is C and an angle here which is F. Now look at the position of C and F very carefully. So we can have this angle here which is angle C, then we have this angle here which is angle F. Look at their position very well. We can also have this angle here which is angle D, then this angle here which is also angle E. So angle C and F and angle D and E are alternating angles or alternate angles. So we see that the following angles are alternate angles. So C and F are alternate angles and D and E are alternate angles. Once again, look at their position very well. So C is here, F is here, D is here, and E is here. So we say that C and F are alternate angles, D and E are alternate angles. And what is the property of alternate angles? Alternate angles are equal. So in this diagram, C is equal to F and D is equal to E. So C and F are alternate angles, D and E are alternate angles, and alternate angles are equal. So C is equal to F and D is equal to E. So we've learned the property of alternate angles. Another angle that will also be formed is what we call the corresponding angles. Now, what are their position on this diagram? We can see that there will be an angle formed here. We are going to call this angle here angle A. There's also another angle formed here. We are going to call this angle angle E. Now look at it very well. You will see that this is the parallel line here. Now the transversal is crossing it here. Look at the position of A and look at the position of E. We see that they are corresponding. So A and E are corresponding angles. In the same way, another angle will be formed here which is C, another angle will be formed here which is also G. Look at their position also well. So C is here and G is here. We say that C and G are also corresponding. Another angle will also be formed here. So look at this one, B. Another one also formed here, F. We say that B and F are corresponding. So A and E are corresponding. The top is corresponding to the top, then the down is also corresponding to the down. When you come here, C and G are also corresponding, then D and H are also corresponding. So D is corresponding to H. Now, what is the property of corresponding angles? I'm going to clean this so that you see it well. So we see that the following angles are corresponding. So A and E are corresponding, C and G are corresponding, B and F are corresponding, then D and H are also corresponding. What are the properties? Corresponding angles are equal. So when you come here, A is equal to E, C is equal to G, B is equal to F, and D is equal to H, because they are corresponding angles. Once again, look at their positions very, very well. So A corresponds to E, C corresponds to G, B corresponds to F, and D corresponds to H. In the previous slide, we considered alternating angles. Now we can see that B and G are alternating angles, D and E are alternating angles. We've moved on from there. We are now considering corresponding angles. So here, A and E are corresponding, C and G are corresponding, B and F are corresponding, D and H are also corresponding. And what do you know about corresponding angles? Corresponding angles are equal. Another type of angle that we form is what we call the co-interior angles. Co-interior angles. Now, what are their position? We can see that an angle will be formed here, and we are going to call this angle here angle C. We are going to call this angle here angle C. So this is angle C, and this is angle C. Now another angle will also be formed here, so we are going to call this angle angle D, then we call this one angle F. These are what we refer to as co-interior angles. So we say that the following angles are co-interior. C and E are co-interior angles, then D and F are also co-interior angles. What are the properties of co-interior angles? Co-interior angles add up to 180 degrees. So once again, alternate angles are equal, corresponding angles are equal, co-interior angles add up to 180 degrees. So what this means is that C plus E will give us 180 degrees, D plus F will give us 180 degrees, because they are co-interior angles. Once again, remember that you can only have alternate angles, corresponding angles, and co-interior angles if and only if you have parallel lines with a transversal crossing it. If there are no parallel lines, you can't use any of these properties that we've learned. We are going to use the properties that we've learned, these three properties, and add it to the previous properties that we learned in the previous video to solve this question that we have here. Find the value of the letters in the diagram below. So we have the letters I, H, and G. Now, we are supposed to use the properties that we've learned in this video and the previous video to solve this question. So, as I always do, I'm going to shift it to this side so that we can solve it. Just as we did for the previous video, whenever you are being given the question, consider the question carefully and recall the properties that you know, then use it to solve the question. You can start from any one of your choice. Now let's look at this very carefully. We just learned that corresponding angles are equal. From this angle, from this diagram, we can see that H is corresponding to 120 degrees. If you look at what we have on corresponding angles here, we can see clearly from here that D and H are corresponding. D and H are corresponding. You can see that D and H corresponding is the same as H and 128 degrees. So the down part corresponds to the down part, the top part corresponds to the top part. This is what I mean. So we have H here, which is below, corresponding to what we have here, which is also below. I will correspond to this part here which is empty. That is not what we are interested in. We are interested in what we have here, which is h. So a, because h is corresponding to 120 degrees, we know that to 128 degrees, we know that corresponding angles are equal, so h will give us 128 degrees. That is simple, right? Now let's look at the relationship between h and g. We said that looking at the position of h and g are alternate angles. Look at the position very well. H and G are alternate angles or alternating angles. So H and G are alternate angles. What do we know about alternate angles? Alternate angles are equal. So H is equal to G. We've already found G to be 128. We already found H to be 128 degrees. So G is also 128 degrees. Now let's look at another simple way of doing this. We know from the previous slide that vertically opposite angles are equal. Now look at something. G is vertically opposite to 128 degrees. So we can also use that and say that G is equal to 128 degrees. So consider the diagram very carefully. Then recall all the properties that you have and pick the one that will help you to solve the question. So here we found H, we found G. We are left with I. How do we find I? Now let's look at it very carefully. We can see from here that I and H are on a straight line. Sorry. We can see that I and H are on a straight line. Now, we know from the previous video that angles on a straight line add up to 180 degrees. So if you add I to H, you must get add up to 180 degrees. So if you add I to H, you must get 180 degrees. So I plus H will give us 180 degrees. Sorry. So I plus H is equal to 180 degrees. We have already found H to be 128 degrees. So we say that I plus 128 degrees will give us 180 degrees. Then if you simplify, you are going to have I to be equal to 180 degrees minus 128 degrees. Then I is equal to 52 degrees. So we found I, we found H, and we found G using the properties that we've learned in this video and the previous videos. Once again, you can only use alternate angles, corresponding angles, and co-interior angles if and only if you have parallel lines with a transversal crossing it. Now when you have that, you can use these properties and you add it to the previous properties that we've learned and you use them to solve the question. Thank you for watching this video on plane geometry. Pick some more examples and try your hands on it. In the next video, we are going to pick some more questions that involve parallel lines and transversals. Bye bye.